Okay, welcome to today's lesson. Today we will still work on what we started working yesterday, because I want to show you how to achieve some things manually, so that then we can understand what's the difference that Bootstrap brings to our development. Okay, so we will work on this the first hour, and then the second half we will start with Bootstrap. Here in the course website you can find the I just wanted to show you that today, this afternoon, you will find here the lab 2 text, the same as last week, that you had here the text. And then you will find the solution, a possible solution for the first one, and you will find it here below the first lab text, okay? So today in the afternoon, I think I will be publishing them, and anyway, I will let you know through Telegram. I will send you a message so you can know that the contents are available there. We are going to work today based on what we did yesterday. So if you don't have the code and you want to get the code and work over that, here on this link, you can get to the repository, and here are the files we will work with. Anyway, if you want to work from scratch with your own files, it's also super nice. Okay. And then, okay, in the second half, we already have here the Bootstrap presentation. That is the second half of the class, of today's class. Okay? Nice. So yesterday we arrived at basically this point where we defined the layout. We identified the grid as the best layout, the best possible layout to replicate our sketch, and then we started working in the header of our application. Okay. Then we decided that the header would behave as a flexbox, that it was the most convenient layout because it enabled us to set the logo on the one side and to set the links on the other side. And we achieved that through the property space between. Okay. Do we agree with this? Any questions? Okay. Well, so let's continue working with the header. So now I propose you to try to remove these 2 bullet points. That this should be done through a property called okay, so here I wrote this property that I applied to the unordered list. So if we take a look at the HTML, we can see here that we have an unordered list. So we can apply the property directly to this one. I mean to this element, to the unordered list definition, or we can apply it directly to each item. In both cases it works. So if, for instance, here instead of UL I apply it to the list elements, it will still work. Or even if I apply it to the class, for instance, header links, no, in this case it doesn't work. It has to be applied just to the UL or to the LE. because this is a property that concerns a list or the elements in a list. Okay. Nice. Do you remember that with the flexbox we also had the chance to align this vertically so that it is not on the top but here in the middle? Do you remember what was the property? We have this property now, align items. That align items, in this case, where we have a row alignment, is the one that sets the vertical alignment of the elements. So we already have justify content to let the space horizontally, and then to play with the vertical alignment of the elements, we have align elements. Align items, sorry. So by setting these to center, have you seen that both of them now occupy the central portion vertically, the central portion of the header? So we're fine with that. Maybe the only thing we can still change is to let here some padding so that both the links and the logo are not stick to the border, but that we leave some space. So do you remember how to add the padding? What is going to happen here? Look at this. If I write these two values, what do you think they mean? One of them is the padding, the horizontal one, and the other one is the vertical one. So in this case, for instance, we are applying one rem for the vertical one. We are leaving here one rem and here one rem, and we are not leaving anything here. It is 0. And if we do the opposite, you can see that. In this way, we can apply the padding just to the horizontal space, okay? Which, in this case, I think it's better because we already have some space here, so we don't need more space vertically, but just horizontally, okay? And just to show you, if instead of 2 values, for instance here, we set 4 values, what it is going to mean? I will be specifying for each of the sides which value do I want to give to the padding, okay? How do I know this? Well, because I have several times been working with this, and because if you have some question or some doubt about how to using any specific element, you can go to the documentation, and there you can find all of these kind of tricks and all of this kind of syntax that you can use to set specific values to the padding, okay? Nice, and maybe the other thing we can change is we don't want this anymore to be one on top of the other one. We wanted them to be one aligned to the left or to the right to the other one. So in this case, This one is right? Okay, yeah, it worked this one. Why? Honestly, I don't know. I suppose this one works when it is within a flex container, something like that. Okay. And maybe we can set some space between both of them. So in this case, it wouldn't be a padding, but a margin maybe. Okay, so I set this margin, and I apply this margin to the left of the elements. So by setting it to the left, it applied the margin here, in this small space, and also here, but since I don't have anything before, well, this margin is not visible, or I can't perceive visually where this margin is, okay? Let's maybe apply something like this. Fine, what else can we change here? Do you agree that maybe we can customize the font so that it is sent more the Times New Roman that we are using here, but use something more modern or something more? So do you remember what was the procedure to use a form? Where do we find them? Yeah, or Google Fonts. Yeah, with font family is a property, yeah, and then we get it from Google Fonts. So. Which one do we want to use? Well, I would suggest this Roboto, that is like the typical one. Okay, let me delete this. So we copy paste here the CSS above the CSS we copy paste the font. And then if we want to apply the same font for the whole document, we apply that property too. Where do we set the font family? To the body, no? So here, let's do it at the beginning, for instance. And in this case, did you see that the font changed for the whole document? Does it work for you? Is everything clear so far? Perfect. Do we like this color for the header, or should we change it? Maybe change it, no? So which color do you suggest? Here I want to let you know that one option is like to set directly the color name among a set of colors that you can find here in the autocomplete. The other option is to use the RGB code. So in that case, it would be something like this one is the white one. Well, and playing with the RGB code, you can use any color you want and set any color you want in the for any element. So do you have some color in mind that you can give me the RGB? But which color do you want?
Maybe of the colors that we get when we get the current color, blue violet. Blue violet is less eye straining.
Okay. This one? Yeah, nice. Okay. So blue violet it is. Okay, are we happy with the header, or do we want to do something else? Of course, this will become then a link. So how do we make this to become a link? So it won't be a text anymore, but instead of this, they will become links. So since they become links, they by default get like this blue color because it's how the browser typically shows them, but it is a default behavior. It's not something we have set up here. It's just the default behavior, and of course we can change this default behavior by doing some changes or some adjustments on the CSS, okay? So there is a rule that we can use in CSS to set the color for the links, for instance. Or if we don't want the colors to be colored, the links to be colored blue, we can do some changes on the CSS. For now, it's fine if we leave them this way. And what is going to happen if I click on the login link? It will try to go to the login.html file, but since we don't have a login.html file, well, it will say it didn't find the corresponding file, okay? So here I did a small change, just made them more visible, so the links now will become white. Any questions so far? Is everything clear? Is there something with the CSS that you haven't understand or something new? Okay. So now I propose to work on the navigation bar. So here in the navigation bar, we basically had 3, 4, 6 links. All of them were aligned horizontally, and I suppose we want all of them to be like balanced so that each one of them occupy like the same amount of space. No? So let's try to create in that way. So first of all, before starting to code, how do you think we can achieve this layout within the navigation bar? Which layout are we going to use? Grid or flexbox? Maybe flexbox. Why?
We just need one row. So.
Because in this case we just need one row, and by definition flexbox is the one that has one dimension. So flexbox could be fine. And the other reason would be because with flexbox, again, with the properties based around, it aligns all of the elements perfectly so that each one of them occupies the space we want to occupy. So yeah, I agree that flexbox could be the best option here. So first of all, how do we set this navigation bar to behave as a flexbox? By applying the CSS rule to my nav. Okay, so we are going to say that my nav is going to behave as a flexbox. And then we're going to say that the elements within the navigation bar, the links within the navigation bar, are going to be flexbox items, okay? So, we had find a tutor, Okay, why are we not seeing these elements? Because before here in the styles, do you remember that we set all of the links to be white? So here, since the background is white, we can't see them, but they are here. Do you see that they are here? It is just that their font color is set to white. So how do we change that? We can create a new rule, a new property, in which we say that the links within the navigation bar, we don't want them to be white. We want them to have a different color. So in this case, we can set any color we want, okay? Because
it describes not all the elements of the flexbox that do, so it will be flex, will be defined as a flex.
you are completely right, because I was trying to define this property within. I made a confusion because with the grid, we had to define for each grid element how it behaved. But here, this definition doesn't go in each item, but it goes on the container definition. So this justified content is not here, but here. Okay? So here I basically leave the space between the elements so that all of them distribute among all the available space, leaving the same space between each link. Then I align them to the center, vertically aligned to the center. Then I add some padding, but just in the sides. So here and here I'm adding this one rem padding so that they don't remain stick to the border. And then I set the font size to small, but I think it's kind of better for. Okay, so I think that so far so good. I mean, concerning the heading and the navigation bar, it's basically looking the same. So we are almost getting the same in graphical interface. Now let's move to this central portion of the website that I think it's like the most difficult one. That is the one concerning the description, are the articles that we will have there, okay? So for instance here we have the description, that is a portion of the site that we want to occupy just like the top portion of that main content, and then we have the articles that we want them to occupy all of the available space. How do you think we can set this? I mean, which one do you think is the layout through which we can achieve this behavior or this looking? Do you want a grid or a flexbox? A flexbox? Okay. But with the flexbox, how do we make this to be smaller than the content that will be below? Is there any way to achieve that? Maybe with something like this, no? So that we want, for instance, these ones to occupy just one portion and the other ones to occupy all of the available space, or more, or this one, indeed. The first one as fixed, and then a flexible one that will grow up with all of the contents that it will have within. Okay, so let's try to build this one as a flexbox, having this in mind. This is called main content. In this one, let's take into account that we don't want to add the elements horizontally, but we want to add them vertically, no? Because the first one will be the description, and then below it we will have all the article concerning or representing each tutor. So in this case, we will use this flex direction. Won't be row anymore, but it will be column, so that we can add the elements one below the other one. Okay. Okay. So do you see that here now it is adding all the elements vertically? And here we have basically two elements. On the one hand, we have the description, that is this piece that says, who are we? This one, this box. And then we have another section that is the one with the tutors, that is this one. Indeed, let me do something. Right. Okay, so we have this first section, who are we, and then we have the other section that is the our tutors section or container. So the first one belongs to the class description, so we can and then the other class will be this one that we haven't still created, that should be class so that by doing this second section will occupy more space than this section above. Why? In this moment they look exactly the same, because we don't have any content on them. But if we had more content on each article, then it will behave differently. Okay. Okay, so I think that up to this point we already got all of the important information or the important concepts concerning the CSS and how to apply the CSS to a specific HTML. And the most important message that I wanted to convey was that here we can mix up like the different layouts we need to use on each element to achieve the initial sketch that we proposed. Okay? So first we decided to use the grid layout for the whole structure, and then we zoom in into each component and we try to think how do we want to represent each component so that we can achieve the graphical layout. Okay? That's the most important message. Now I want, the last thing that I want to do over this specific page, HTML and CSS, is try to think of a responsive behavior. No? Try to think how this would look if we want to open it from a cell phone, or how this would change if we would try to open it from an iPad or from a different device. So the question in this case is, will it always look like this, or will it change depending on the device? It will maybe change, or it will for sure change. No? So, for instance, which sections are we willing to sacrifice if we have to open this from a small device? Or how can we change the behavior so that it can look, that a user can understand the contents from a smaller device or from a smaller screen? What do you think we can change?
Maybe keep the middle block always there.
Okay.
And then
You mean this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It will be the first section as usual, and then the search bar maybe after it, and then most popular courses after it, or we can interchange the two sides.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I agree. So in this case, okay, this is a grid layout. So in this case, we said, let me check something. Yeah, so in this case, for instance, we would make this one, this main portion of the website, to behave basically as how the header behaves or as the navigation bar behaves, no? Because it will occupy the whole screen. It will occupy like the whole available space when the screen becomes smaller, okay? So I agree, and then the same for these ones. These ones will occupy the whole screen when the available space becomes smaller, okay? Yes, I agree. And this one will be the first one, and then these two ones, right? Okay. What else could change? Maybe it's not something we will do now, but for instance, if here we have 6 links, maybe we want to hide them and to show like some button. In many websites it works like that, like a button that you click and it opens the links below so that you can easily click on the link you want. So maybe that's some change we can consider. Are we fine with the footer? Yeah, maybe yes. Here what could change is that instead of showing the contents on the left side, maybe they can also occupy the whole screen and show one below the other one. In some cases, I don't know if here is the case, instead of showing the elements on a different order, we want directly to hide some elements that we don't consider relevant when the user opens it from a small device, or to show some elements that the user might consider relevant if they open it from the phone. So for instance, if we have a link for installing the application, the mobile application, the native mobile application, we want to show that link if the user is opening it from a smaller screen. Okay. So let's try to do that change so that when the available space in the screen becomes smaller, this main section will occupy the whole width, and these two sections will be placed below. Okay. Let me So do you remember how we achieved this responsive behavior so far? It was through these media queries, no? So that we defined specific breakpoints, and we said under these breakpoints, apply this set of specific rules. Apply these changes to the CSS. So let's try to copy paste and do this one. Okay, so we know it works because when the space gets smaller, the background is set to red. Okay, so this is just a test to see if it works.
We could remove the logos once it gets.
Okay, yeah. So we can change the logo. Nice. So indeed, we can do something like this. Let me try something. Okay, we don't want anymore this to become red, so I will delete this one. It was just to make sure it worked. But we could do something else. Did you see what I do? So here, if we don't have a space, the elements won't be placed anymore like on a horizontal row, but they will be placed one on top of the other one. Okay, so I changed that direction, so it won't be anymore a row, but in this case, it will be a column. And the placement of the objects will be using them, placing them as if they were in a column. So here I said that my header direction is not anymore a row, but now it's a column. So one below the other one. And then I said when the space is so small, I want the logo to occupy the whole available width with the 100%. Okay? So that the logo is not that small anymore. Does it make sense? Yes, because then when I have more available space, it gets back to the original layout where the elements are set up like a row, and the logo just occupies a smaller space because it's more visible and we have there more available space. Okay. How do I make these elements to, how do I align these links in the middle, for instance, in the center? I'm not sure because it seems something is not working with that align.
For the margin.
Maybe it's the margin. Is the margin?
On the left.
But
Define it.
which was the margin here? You mean the padding?
No, we wrote margin left.
Ah, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, let's check if it is the margin. So let's say, for instance, here that if the screen is small, we don't want this margin anymore. No, because the margin was the space here in between. So maybe the padding. Well, according to this, it seems that this class is fine, the header links class is fine because as you can see, it is in the middle, so it is well aligned. The problem should be with this UL that adds that green space. Do you see that green space on the left? So somehow it is being aligned to the right, so it leaves that link space and gives us the impression that it is aligned towards the right. So
I think there is a built-in padding with
Yeah.
the L10 called padding inline start.
this one, right?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I removed it, and when I also removed the LI margin left, it was centered.
Okay, let me check if I can. Yeah, it is that padding, that is a built-in padding that we couldn't know before that it was there. Okay, how did I know that padding existed? By using the inspector. No. So with the browser inspector, I can take a look at the HTML, and when I click over the elements there, so for instance, when I click here, I can see which are the styles that are being applied to each element. Okay? So by doing this, I could identify that, for instance, in this specific UL, as you said before, there was this default padding that was adding some space in there, okay?
Professor.
Yeah.
Also, one thing to notice: the body has a built-in margin, but you see there's like a slight margin at the side, which is a bit annoying.
Which one?
The body itself, it has a built-in margin.
This one, you mean?
The whole website.
Sure, but visually it. Let me see. Ah, okay. This.
Yeah.
The one in orange, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It has this margin top, maybe.
Yeah, that one.
So sure, if we want to remove that margin, we can do by overriding this property. Yeah, thank you. So up to now, everything is clear? Questions? Were you going to say something?
I wanted to say that if you want to not have the problem of like the margin left for the line elements, you could just put like line plus LA plus LA, so it applies to the second.
Ah, yeah. So for instance, which one do you mean?
Outside
The, in here?
yeah.
Plus? What do you mean?
LA.
Okay. Okay. And why does this work?
Because then it's applied on the line, the list elements that are follow another list element, so the first doesn't.
Ah, yeah, nice. Because, yeah, sure. Because in this case, it would be, let me see if I have, no, not here, but, because in this case, it would be, we would be playing with this one, right? So that it applies to the element exactly after the div, for instance, in this case. But in this case, but in our case, since we are using p plus p, it will be applying to the p, yeah, to the paragraph, to the list element after another list
And
element.
also, if we add other like links, then it would apply also on the third link that we have, since it's also a list element that follows a list element.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so nice. So far we have changed this one, so that, for instance, when the space is smaller, so we change the direction of the elements here, and we set the login, the buttons below. Now we wanted to make some changes on this specific portion of the website. How do we change them? Do you have any idea? Have you tried something? I think, of course, it will have to do with the main content, right? So we will have to do something with the main content. That is the one that is representing this portion of the website. So we want the main content to occupy the whole width. Do we agree? So let's try to do that. And how do we make it to use the whole width? Basically, by applying the same rules that we have applied already to the header that is occupying everything, or that the same ones that we are using to applying to the navbar that is already occupying everything. Okay. So Bob, let's see how we achieve that within there. It's basically this. So since the main content is within a grid container, we can set these two properties so that it occupies the whole width. Okay. So the content within the main content behaves as a flexbox, but the main content within the general interface, within the structure, behaves as a grid container. So by setting these two rules, we can set the grid container to occupy both of them. To occupy all of the columns, okay? Okay, what did I do here? I want also the filters to occupy the whole content, and I want also the ranking to occupy the whole content, no? Because now I want to set them one below the other one, okay? So our site is basically now behaving like this. So we have the filters in here. Below we have the main content, and then we have the ranking. But there is something wrong, no? Because we want the main content to occupy all of this space, and then below the filters, and then below the ranking, okay? So how do we change the position of the elements?
The assigned grid row starts with the plus filters.
Yeah.
Ranking. You change the values.
So we change the values in which they will start, not the columns, but the rows, no? So let's do it for the main content first. So it will where this one will start? In the second, I think, right? Okay. Ah, no, in the third one. In the third one, because this one would be like the, okay, the first one is here, the second one is here, and the third one starts here. So it will be the third one, and it will already occupy the biggest row available here, so we are fine with that. Then we have the filters, and then we have the ranking. So this way we achieved that behavior of having the main section occupying the most height portion of the website, then we have the filters, and then the ranking. where is the footer in this display? Where is the footer? What happened with the footer? Yeah? It doesn't exist anymore, no? Why? Because by setting up one element below the other one, we added a new row, no? In the previous one, since the three elements were one next to the other one, all of them occupied one row. But since here we're putting them one below the other one, aligned vertically, we added one more row, or we need one more row, no? Because here we have this one that is 1, 2, 3 rows, 4, 5, and then we need a sixth one for the footer, no? So how do we fix this? We need to overwrite the grid container within the media query that we defined for the responsive view. So here we have to overwrite some properties. Okay, these ones remain the same because we don't want to do anything on them, so we don't need to overwrite anything here. The gap will remain the same, so we don't have to do anything on the gap. But on this one, we have to change to say that we will have one more row, no? And that this one more row will occupy one fraction. And let me see if it works. I think we still. Yeah, we still needed another one, no? Because now we have like 6 elements, one below the other one. So we still needed this one. Let's say that in this case, it will occupy 5 fractions. This one is the footer. Okay, so the 3 of them occupy 5 fractions, the 3 elements in the bottom. Then we have the main content that, well, let's say it will occupy 3. And now we have the navigation bar and the header of the website, okay? So somehow by applying these rules and applying the media queries, we were able to create like a responsive version of our website in which the elements are placed in a different position so that we can view them on a, let's think of this as a mobile device screen, okay? Is it clear how we achieve this responsive behavior? And then, of course, if we get back to our previous behavior, to our previous screen, the elements are once again aligned so that they comply with the other graphical interface we have designed. Okay, so questions so far? Are you trying to do it in your computers? Does it work?
Maybe for the navigation we can have wrapping. So
Maybe. Yeah, I agree. But in which case? Here or here? Yeah. Okay, so how do I apply that? It will be applied to these ones, right? to my nav. And not to the elements, but to the container, right? What's the property? Yes. Okay. Yeah, nice. So that the elements, when the space is over, it goes below. Nice. Thank you. Something else? Some other change that you might implement? Something you have tried? Yeah? Yeah. Is it fine? You mean the hamburger menu is the one that you click and it shows? Yeah. We will get to that. Yeah. Yeah, because that's the ideal solution, no? Instead of showing the links this way, show. Let me check if. Something like this, no? So that instead of showing the links here, it shows like the button, that when you click the button, it shows the menu. Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, so the question here is this difficult to implement? Do you perceive this as difficult? I don't think it is difficult, but it is kind of boring, no? Because it's from scratch, doing everything, paying attention to each little detail, that kind of spaces that by default the browser adds to the elements, and then when something doesn't work, as you saw, I had to go to the inspector, check what was the space that was being added there. So it's kind of tricky, not tricky, but boring somehow because it's very, boring. Not difficult, but boring, let's say. And the next question is, do you think we are the first ones that are dealing with this? We're trying to build a website with a header that has a logo on the left and that has the links in the right? Of course not. Basically, all of the websites basically are structured and built in that way. Or do you think we're the first ones that are trying to figure out how to implement a responsive behavior in our application? No, because already all of the web applications have that responsive behavior, and all of them, for instance, have in mind that specific mechanism through which they can show a menu when the screen is smaller, or all of the web applications already know that maybe some sections will be hidden or will be reorganized when the screen is smaller, or all of this stuff that we are dealing with is something that we have seen that all of the websites and all of the web applications have already implemented. So this is why, in this case, using a framework makes sense, because a framework is something that someone has already built for us and that we can use, and that it has implicit some solution for these usual kind of concerns that we might get during the development of the website. So why did I wanted to show how to implement this from scratch and without using a framework? Because now that we will see Bootstrap and we will learn how to use Bootstrap, you already have like the basic concepts and you will know why Bootstrap works. So it is not magic, it is not just applying the classes that Bootstrap tells us to apply, but we will get to know how does it work below, and you will be able to customize Bootstrap whenever you want, and the components that Bootstrap has, however you want. So that's one reason why it was important to see from the basics how the CSS works, so that we can then customize Bootstrap. And also because if we feel the pain of doing this kind of stuff from scratch, then we can appreciate and see the value of using a CSS framework. Bootstrap is not the only one. In this course, we have decided to use Bootstrap because it's the simplest one to install and to set up, but there are different kinds of CSS frameworks. The important thing is that when you are considering of using a CSS framework, you can reason why do you want to use it, which one is the one that aligns better with your needs and that you can understand conceptually what it means as CSS framework. Okay, so questions so far? Do we all understand how the HTML and the CSS works from scratch? Nice. So I think we can stop here, take like a 15 minutes break, and then after the break we will start with Bootstrap.